True relevance comes from strategic fit, strategic relevance, born out of the situation that we are facing as societies in Europe and also in Germany. So you need to understand what the need is that you're serving. And it's about serving. It's not about the quickest possible profit in the shortest amount of time. It's about serving our societies with the technologies and the products they need. It's much more about responsibility than it used to be perhaps in the past. My name is Moritz Brake. I'm Managing Director and founder of Nexmaris. We are a company, a specialized consulting company at the nexus of government, armed forces, industry, and research. And we also deal a lot with startups, innovative technologies. I think we've all come to painfully realize how much we depend on the sea, how much the foundations of our life, even far ashore, depend on maritime security. On functioning maritime trade routes, over 90% of global trade passes over the sea. A lot of our electricity is generated at sea, and over 80% of Europe's energy supply arrives here through our ports over the sea. So we all depend on the ocean. And also as a critical element of our planetary ecosystem, humans cannot thrive, cannot exist without the ocean, but our modern economies, our modern societies do not work without the ocean and maritime security. And we've realized that now in this age of geopolitical competition, our opponents, our rivals, are coming to use these dependencies against us, to threaten them, to use violence, to use military force, to put pressure on us. And that ranges from the Black Sea, the war in Ukraine, to now also the Strait of Hormuz, the war in Iran, and the effects of Iran's blockade of trade routes through the Strait of Hormuz. But there are other hotspots that affect us dearly. Also sabotage of maritime critical infrastructure in the Baltic Sea and in the North Sea. All of this threatens the foundations of our lives, and people come to realize it. And I think a blind spot that we still haven't fully comprehended yet is how much we have to ensure functioning maritime supplies of our societies. So it's not just about protection against threats, it's also about building reliable supply lines, investing in shipping and in national reliable structures for supply, maritime supply, even in crisis and wartime. I think this is long overdue. We need to focus on the full dimensions, all of the dimensions of sea power, from military to economy to society, politics, and culture as well. And I think over the past decades, especially in Germany, all of these different parts of geopolitical power, of agency, of sovereignty, and of sea power have been seen as distinct and not thought in an integrated whole. Grand strategy, as is used as a term in English, is not something that has been practiced in an institutionalized way in Germany, but it's also something that has not been integrated entirely on the European level. It is on a military scale integrated in NATO, but there again, the economic dimension is lacking. So we need to bring all of these different dimensions together and make sure that we really think grand strategically, think big, think in dependencies, but also opportunities, not just in risks, but also in chances, and bring all of the instruments to bear to advance the interests of our societies and shape the future we want to live in. But clearly, the war in Ukraine, but also the war in Iran and the effects of the war in Iran on maritime security, on the security of sea lanes, teaches us that war has fundamentally changed in many ways. And also the international economic landscape is changing, and dependencies and how dependencies are used as leverage, as a means of exerting power over others has changed. So we need to focus on technologies that allow us to deal with these risks in a much better way. So that means autonomous systems, unmanned systems are critical in the air, on the water, under the water. But we also need to take into account the full spectrum, what the militaries call multi-domain operations, from seabed to space. This is one focus area. So technology that deals with this, unmanned technology, needs to be taken into account. And then a particular aspect of that is surveillance and data dissemination. So all of this information that we get needs to be organized, understood, and acted upon. And this will not be possible without a clear focus and shift towards artificial intelligence. So we need a full spectrum of support systems running on artificial intelligence, but we need to also be able, within our bounds of law and ethical convictions, to hand over decision-making to artificial intelligence in critical situations, because our opponents are using it against us, and we are risking the lives of people we need to protect if we stop processes that are very time-sensitive. And on another point, the third aspect of technology I think that's critical is logistics. This is something that's often forgotten as we focus on combat situations, dealing with unmanned systems or crewed systems in combination. We often forget that wars are won by sea power and logistics. We need to be able to supply our societies. We need to be able to sustain our efforts of deterrence and, if need be, of defense against any opponent over a long time. Whatever we're facing is not going to be over quickly. So that means to keep our societies running under defense conditions, under wartime conditions, means we need to supply logistics. And this needs to be rethought and needs to be redone, also under the greatest leverage possible of technology. I think the really big advantage of the SMM is that it brings together all the relevant players that we need in order to leverage sea power for the greatest advantage for sovereignty and the ability to shape our futures in Europe, in Germany. So here we have the traditional maritime economy, from ports to shipping companies, to shipyards, to maritime supply companies, to those that focus specifically on navies, on maritime defense. But we also have players from the legislative authorities, from the classification societies that help us build the systems that actually prevail in complex environments, but also fulfill the needs of the business community and the navies. Then we have the political side of things, those that make the decisions that we in our societies entrust with the power to make the decisions that will prepare us for the future and address the needs of the day. They will have to be able to see the breadth of possibilities in technology and the current business practice, the current vulnerabilities, and the current chances, and see what navies can do and what navies can do with the technology that is available at the market. So in addition to this, we also have a great possibility to reach the public when the SMM as a stage addresses certain topics and brings together certain players. We can also reach out and translate this into public attention. And all of this will not work if the population in Europe will not support it. Sea power has always been a societal effort. This is not something that can be done on the cheap. It will always pay for itself in chances and economic opportunities and output. But this is something that requires a conscious upfront investment, be it in navies, be it in maritime capabilities like ports, shipyards, and shipping companies. There are tremendous opportunities here, but in order to realize them, we need societal support. And the SMM crosses all of these different boundaries and brings people together, builds bridges, creates a nexus between armed forces, maritime industry, society, and politics. True relevance comes from strategic fit, strategic relevance, born out of the situation that we are facing as societies in Europe and also in Germany. So you need to understand what the need is that you're serving. And it's about serving. It's not about the quickest possible profit in the shortest amount of time. It's about serving our societies with the technologies and the products they need. It's much more about responsibility than it used to be perhaps in the past. And in fact, if you look at the maritime sector, those companies that are still in business after 150 years, and we have some of these old shipping companies here at the trade fair, these companies have always had this commitment to societal responsibility, to the supply of their societies in crisis, of keeping supply lines open, maritime supply lines open, even in times of war. So this underlying fundamental commitment to our societies, to our values, I think this is paramount. This is not a moment for windfall profits. This is a moment for all of us working together on the goal that protects our future, the future of our children, the future of our societies, and shields our values from those outside that are attacking it, and those that are trying to upset the international order that we've been thriving in for so many decades.